In the final part of theory lesson number 7, we will examine beats in greater detail. Up until now, if you think about it, we've been looking at music as two divisions. The division of what we play, or sound, and how long we play it, that is the notes, and then it also includes rest for the amount of silence that we have in between the notes. We have various shapes that we see appearing on the music score, and that represent the amount of time that is given to each note which is being held. And here we see them once again. It was very much like going over and having a pizza with your friend. If there was only two of you, you would each get half. If two more friends came over, you would cut your pieces in half and each have a quarter, and so on. Time was very much like that with music. You could have an entire whole note and cut it in half, and you would have two half notes, or a half rest. If you took the half note and cut it in half, you would have a quarter note, or a quarter rest. Half that, and you would have an eighth note, or an eighth rest. Half that, you would have a 16th note, or a 16th rest. Half that, and you would have a 32nd note and a 32nd rest. And yes, there is even a 64th rest, or a 64th note. The question then became, do musical beats within a measure each have equal strength to each other? Because we saw that there are different time signatures, and we'll go through that in a little bit right now. Well, the answer to that is no. But to help understand why that is the case, think of a time that you went to the doctor because you weren't feeling well. Sometimes she or he will check your pulse and record the number of beats per minute. Your pulse, though, can be thought of as a little bit more complex than that, because your heart pumps blood through the contraction of different chambers of the heart, each of which has a different strength. In a way, it is like trying to hold a ball tightly in the hand that you use the most versus your less dominant hand. The first one will be held very firmly and strongly, while the other one will be held more weakly. Musical beats within a measure are very similar to that at a fundamental level. Not every beat has the same strength to it. In future lessons, and with the Quizlet flashcards, we will discover certain symbols that composers use to change the strength or prominence of a single note, or a group of notes, or even a large part of a piece of music for its dynamic volume, soft or loud, for instance. But from the very start, before any of those markings appear on a score, each beat has its own relative strength compared to the other beats in the same measure, and that is all based upon the time signature at the very beginning of the score. Looking at our chart, we notice that regardless of the time signatures shown here, right down here, 2/2 time, 2/4 time, 3/4, 4/4, 3/8, or 6/8 time, the first beat is always the strongest, and the second beat is always the weakest, and that does not change. The first beat is actually called the down beat, because you're coming down from there. Now, when we look at that a little bit further, we notice that in 3/4 time, the first two time signatures had 2 beats each. In 3/4 time and 3/8 time, there are 3 beats per measure. 3/4 time, the quarter note gets the beat. 3/8 time, the eighth note gets the beat. We still have strong, weak, but that third beat is also weak. Things change up just a little bit when we get into 4/4 time. That's 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. In that case, we have a 4th beat, and that third beat actually becomes medium strong. And you can imagine why, because if you had a piece of music where you had 1 strong note and then 3 weak notes, it would get sort of potentially a little bit boring in a rhythmic sense, sort of tedious. The same thing happens with 6/8 time. The first beat is strong, and then we have 2 weak beats. But in that second set of 3, we have a medium strong, because we don't want as strong as the very first one, and then we have 2 weak ones after that. In a real way, we can actually think of that part of music as our musical pulse. So in the final part of this lesson, let's just listen very closely to the different strength of beats and see how they do sound. C over C here, this one here, C at the top, C in the bottom, is actually called common time, and that's 4/4 time. And you can see that because we have a quarter note one here, 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 and here. So that's 4 beats in one measure, the grouping of notes between 2 vertical lines. Listen how the first note, the first beat, note played on the first beat is always the strongest. The second one is always the weakest, and then it begins to change out here with a medium strong, and here with a medium strong as well. Two 4-time, 3 4-time in 3 beats, 3 8-time with 3 beats, and 6 8-time with 6 beats.